Okay, so your Chiamo greetings, Yedase. We thank you for tuning in once again. So for those who are unaware, I am Ojirafo Kwesi Ranehmpata Akan, Ojirafo of Akwamumana Maruka, Etivimudi Akwamu Nation in North America within Ojiraman, the purified nation, Afuraitkait people, African Black people in the Western Hemisphere, also the founder of Hudoo Jasedine, the Hearth Shrine of Akan Ancestral Religion, Hoodoo in North America. So, topic that we want to touch on today, we posted this information. We posted it a while back, but we reposted it today. We gave an update today. We posted a new update in our campaign. So some of you all are aware that we have released, we published a number of books. I published 31 books to date. We also have a number of courses and so forth, 42 online courses. But we've published a number of books, and some of those books deal with the Hoodoo tradition, proving that Hoodoo is Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. And to that end, we also released our first documentary film almost 2 years ago. This October will be 2 years. Hoodoo, Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. Let me show you that the image for the flyer. You can watch that film for free, full documentary film, on this YouTube channel. When you look in the documentary section, you will see both of our documentaries. The Amarokafo Adibisa documentary, African American Ancestral Divination. And then you'll also see this. This is the flyer for the Hoodoo film, Hoodoo, Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. So you can watch that film for free. It's 102 minutes. Runtime is a full length documentary. And it's actually part of our trilogy. So we are working on the second film. Our goal is to release the second film by this October, which is our 11th anniversary of our Hudoo Hudoo Nation festival. So let me show you. So we have a fundraiser campaign, a crowdfunding effort. We put this out a while back when we first started working on the film over a year ago, but now we are getting down to the last moment. So I want to touch on what the film is going to be about, talking about Hoodoo Ritual. The first film in the trilogy was talking about the identity of Hoodoo as Akan Ancestral Religion, the Akan ethnic group, those of us who are descendant from Akan Ancestresses and Ancestors who were forced into enslavement. The Akan people make up the majority and plurality of ethnicities in the region of Ghana, which is in West Afuraka, Afuraitkait, West Africa, and Ivory Coast, which is neighboring Ghana. So you have the country of Ghana, you have the country of Ivory Coast. Together, collectively, there are about 26 million Akan people between Ghana and Ivory Coast. One of the largest ethnic groups on the continent of Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa, and also one of the largest groups from whom we were taken and forced into North America. So the Akan people is a large ethnic group. The Igbo people, that's a large ethnic group in southeastern Nigeria. The Yoruba is a large ethnic group in southwestern Nigeria. The people of the Congo, the Bakongo, and so forth. The Gola and Kisi people in Sierra Leone and parts of Liberia, which became the Gullah and Geechee people here in North America. So there are certain groups that are large ethnic groups from whom a lot of us were taken. Those of us who were taken from the Akan civilization and so forth, forced into North America, we continued our Akan Ancestral Religion under the Akan word and term Ndu, which means medicine from roots, trees, and plant life. It also means become heavy with the spirit through spirit possession and spirit communication. It also means to feel a presentiment or foreboding, to see what's unfolding in the spirit realm, to make ritual adjustments so you can align yourself with order. So Ndu came to be pronounced Hoodoo in North America, but that is our ancestral religious practice. So our first film deals with that, the identity of Hoodoo, as specifically the full-fledged Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. We didn't lose our religion. We didn't lose our ritual practices. Those who maintain those in their blood circle, we still have the tradition. So when people say they don't know where Hoodoo comes from, or it's a mixture of various African traditions, or a mixture of Native American and European occultism and African traditions, that is totally fraudulent, 100% false. The reality is Hoodoo is specifically and exclusively the Akan Ancestral Religion of Akan people from Ghana and Ivory Coast. It's not a mixed tradition at all. So we go into detail about that, and we have a number of different things that we talk about. So that was part one. Now let's look at this. This is the crowdfunding effort, and we're going to give a short description, and then we're going to show some of this ritual that we've been talking about with regard to the Hoodoo tradition. All right, so we talk about that, and here, of course, you can see on our page, that's the Hoodoo film. You can watch that film. Some of you have seen it already. So we say that in part one of the trilogy, we examine the trustorical, and cosmological identity of Hoodoo as Akan Ancestral Religion preserved in the blood circles of our Akan Ancestresses and Ancestors in North America. And you see that we did that with the first film. In part two of this trilogy, we examine Hoodoo Ritual. So cosmology and identity in the first film, we already addressed that. This new film will delve into Hoodoo Ritual. We delve into the practice of Hoodoo rooted in our direct invocation and evocation of the Abosom, that is the Akan term for deities, the divine spirit forces in creation that animate the sun, moon, oceans, rivers, planets, stars, and so forth. Same as Orisha in Yoruba, or Vodou and Eve. The Abosom in the Akan tradition are the goddesses and gods, the forces in nature. And the Nsamanfo, these are the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of our spirit genetic blood circle. That is the class of, ancestral spirits that we communicate with. So we travel to various parts of the United States to capture authentic ritual by Hoodoo practitioners. We also travel back to Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa, inclusive of Kamit and Khanit, Egypt and Nubia, and Ghana, to demonstrate the continuity of ritual practice from Akan people on the continent and Akan people in North America. And then we talk about part three of the trilogy is going to deal with the Hoodoo wars, as we call them, our people waging war against the white snarl spring, organizing militarily. There are different Akan practitioners, Hoodoo practitioners, such as Okunfo Yao, which means warrior Yao, that is Nat Turner. Okunfo Kwabena, which is warrior Kwabena, which is Denmark VC. We have Nana Abena, Araminta, which is Harriet Tubman, and so forth. All of them were of Akan ancestry. All of them were Hoodoo practitioners. They knew their Akan descent, talked about in trustorical books and so forth. So that third installment is going to focus on the Hoodoo wars, the wars of liberation that forced the end of enslavement, the insurrections, the revolts, and so forth. But part two is dealing with ritual. So, and again, when you see this portion, this is a flyer. You see it says Hudoo Mind. Hudoo Mind means Hudoo Nation. We have a festival called the Hudoo Mind Hudoo Nation Festival. It's an annual festival celebrating the Hoodoo tradition as Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. We started that back in 11 years ago. This is going to be the 11th year. And at the time when we looked around to see what was happening on the landscape of the culture and so forth, we found that there was one annual Hoodoo festival. It was on the West Coast. And of course, it was created and pushed by one of the white snarl springs. So it's a totally fraudulent festival. Hoodoo is Akan Ancestral Religion. No non-Black people is capable of practicing Hoodoo. No non-Black individual can possess the Abosom or be possessed by the forces of nature, nor communicate with them. No non-Black individual can be possessed by nor communicate with the Nananom Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of Afuraka, Afuraitkait people in general, and of course, Akan Ancestresses and Ancestors in particular, who brought the Hoodoo tradition to North America. So no non-Black individual can participate in any form of ancestral religion of our people, no matter what expression it is, inclusive of the Hoodoo tradition. So if you see any non-Black individual pretending to practice Hoodoo, they are 100% frauds. So, but we recognize that there was no authentic Hoodoo festival. We started our own Hudoo Nation festival. Hoodoo Mind means Hudoo Nation, and this will be the 11th year, and it's the only authentic Hoodoo annual Hoodoo festival in the country. We talk about authenticity because we're giving the proper orientation. A lot of our people were given this false notion that Hoodoo came from the Congo or came from the Dogon people, or came from the Mindi people, or is some, amalgamation of those, because they didn't understand the actual foundational group who brought the tradition or the language and so forth. But we went into that in the first film. So that's the flyer for the Hudoo Nation Festival. We always have that in mid-October. And we have that in mid-October because that is the time our New Year observance in the Akan tradition in general, and specifically the Akan tradition in North America, we have a 7-day New Year observance that leads up to, and is the final day. The 7th day is New Year's Day, which is the autumn equinox, which is either September 22nd or September 23rd. So September 22nd this year is going to be the autumn equinox, the first full day of fall, autumn. That is our New Year's Day. It's the end of the warm cycle, and it's the beginning of the cool cycle or the seeding cycle. So it's the harvest time, but it's also the conception time where you plant the seeds. And conception is a beginning. So that's the first beginning. The equinox, the autumn equinox, that's the conception time, the planting time. And then in the spring, 6 months later, is the other evening point of the year. That's the sprouting time, the spring. That's another new birth. So we have an observance during that time, the Apo festival. But in autumn, in September, that's conception. So that's a new beginning, and that's our New Year's Day. So we have a 7-day New Year observance from September 16th through September 22nd, or September 17th through the 23rd, depending on what day, fall begins. And then 3 weeks after that, we have our Hudoo Nation Festival. So this year, the Hudoo Nation Festival will be, this coming up for us, this coming up October in a few months, since it will be after September 23rd for us. September 23rd is our New Year's Day. So a few weeks after that, October 18th, which is a few months from now, for us, we will already be in the year 13,026. We're in the year 13,025 now, but September 23rd will move us to 13,026. 3 months before Europeans celebrate the New Year on January 1st, we're already celebrating the New Year at the beginning of fall. And we say 13,026 because we're in the midst of a astronomical cycle. The precessional cycle is a 26,000-year cycle with regard to the position of the Earth and certain stars and so forth. Nothing happened 2,000 years ago because Jesus, Yeshua, is a fictional cartoon character. And we've proven that in our books and publications and so forth. So we don't track time based on a fictional cartoon character who never existed, of any race or of any form whatsoever. So we're in the midst of a 13,000 or 26,000-year cycle, hence the years beginning with 13. We're in 13,025 now. September 22nd will be 13,026. And our 11th, observance will be October 18th. That will be our next festival. We want to have our film. We released the previous film in October 2 years ago. That was the first installment. Now this October, we want to drop this film at the Hoodoo Festival. And for those of you who contribute, you'll have access to free screenings, as well as when we have the film, we put it on the streaming service and so forth, you'll be able to access it for free since you contributed to our crowdfund effort to help this film come into being. You click on our website, on the YouTube page, og.fo, you'll see in the documentary film section, we have 2 films, and this is the Hoodoo film, of course. I just want to scroll through something. So the first thing we talk about, since we're talking about ancestral religion, what we touch on here is, in the film, we show a few of the front covers of our books, and we, just elucidate very quickly within a minute or so the relevant topic. So this is one of the books I published, Revolts, and it talks about the etymology and cosmology of the words religion and spirit. These terms come directly from ancient Khanit and Kamit, Nubia and Egypt. They do not come from the Proto-Indo-European language phylum. They stole these terms from our people. So that's the first thing we touch on in the film, to show what religion actually is. And then we show how, for example, go back real quick. Make sure it's moving. Okay. You see here that we show that Kensu and Merit, the deities Kensu and Merit, was corrupted into Yeshua, Yesu, and Mary. You'll see the river divinity Muhammad was corrupted into Muhammad. You see the deity Ptah, the fashioner of creation at the center of core of earth. Ptah was corrupted into Buddha. You see the male deity of the moon, Yao, was corrupted into Yahweh, Yahweh, and so forth. So we talk about that. We remove these false notions of the pseudo religions of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and so forth. When we're talking about Hoodoo as ancestral religion, the first thing people are going to think about is, well, what about these other religions? So we have to show, and we've published over 20 years ago our book, Kuku Tuntun, The Ancestral Jurisdiction, showing that Jesus, Yeshua, Muhammad, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, Brahman, and so forth, all the characters in the Bible, Quran, Talmud are fictional characters who never existed of any form or of any race. There was no ancient Hebrews. And we show where they stole the names and titles of certain deities from ancient Kemet, corrupted those titles, added them to false white personages, and then put them forward as real characters and took fragments of our cosmology, corrupted that fragment, and put it forth. So once we get the pseudo religions out the way, within a couple of minutes in the beginning of the film, then we show how we traveled here to ancient Khanit, Nubia, and ancient Kemet to show the origins of the Khan people, the Nubite desert, the Nubian desert, and so forth, south of Kemet or Egypt. Ancient Nubia is also called Khanit, or the Khan land. That's where Khan people, our Khan people, come from. So we're going into these temples showing the original images of the divinities and so forth, just to show that cultural continuity. Let me jump forward right quick. Then we also show that when we went to the Akan area in the region of Ghana, in West Afuraka, Afuraitkait, West Africa, doing ritual at the river and so forth. This is a tributary of a certain river that we have a patriclan divinity, a patriclan Abosom that we invoke and so forth. The same spiritual forces that we carried in our blood circle to North America. Their original shrines are on the continent, but when we come to North America, forced into North America, we go into the river as we just did recently and invoke these same spirits. Their spirits take up residence in the river wherever we are, and we align with those forces in nature and so forth. So we have here Dr. Katrina Hazard, which wrote one of the best books on the Hoodoo tradition, Mojo Working, showing how Hoodoo started off as an ancestral religious practice, fully intact. And then once the Whites and Offspring started trying to corrupt the tradition, became marketeers and selling Hoodoo products and curios in the 40s and 50s and onwards, and started corrupting the perception of what Hoodoo actually is. So it's important we had her on our Hoodoo podcast. And we put one of the clips in the film about that. We started talking about a number of different things. So I want to touch on a couple of things here. There's a section where we get into this Hoodoo pantheon of divinities. And this is important because it has to do with ritual. And the film that's coming up, we're going to delve into ritual and how we maintain our alignment with these forces in nature in North America. Just because we were forced from the continent didn't mean that we lost our capacity to invoke the forces in nature as we've always done. Our priesthoods and priestesshoods in the Hoodoo tradition remained intact. We addressed that in the film, and we're going to get into some more detail with that in the new film and so forth. So we have, in fact, let me scroll back to that just so you can see it. I want to show you an image of specific titles that most people are unaware of that we touched on. So we're talking about the Gofa doctor and the Gofa dust. And the Gofa doctor in the Hoodoo tradition is the Komfo or Komfoa. That is the title of a priest or priestess in the Akan tradition. So the Komfoa came to be pronounced the Gofoa or Gofa doctor or Gofa dust. We're going to get into more detail about the nature and function of the Gofa doctor and the Gofa dust and ritual practice in the new film. But we proved it linguistically and cosmologically in the first film. For that real quick, and I want to talk about the nature of these deities in the Hoodoo tradition, the Hoodoo pantheon and so forth, and how it's related to ritual. So in the Akan tradition, you'll see that there's a concept, and different groups have different variations of this, but in the Akan tradition, there's a concept of the Dadin, which is the day name, also called the Kra Din, which is the soul name. So the day of the week that you're born on, day is the term Da, is for day in Akan tradition. That indicates what divinity you were assigned to pre-incarnation, and therefore that force in nature sent you into the world to be born on that divinity's day as an indication to the community that you were assigned to that specific divinity. Your spiritual head is connected to that divinity. So you're going to carry that divinity's energy into the world, into the human sphere, into the community, and so forth, to bring that energy complex into our community. So the Akan people have a 7-day week. We established the 7-day week tens of thousands of years ago in ancient Khanit in Nubia, south and west of Kamit. We maintained that 7-day week and so forth for thousands of years. The Akan people still have the 7-day week. We did a book series called Akradin Bosom, where we showed the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week and the names associated with that. And we proved that the Akan people and the names of the gods and goddesses, the Abosom that govern the sun, the moon, and the different planets, they have the same names in the Akan tradition that they have in ancient Khanit and Kemet. So we compared the names of these deities and their roles in ancient Kemet in the Medut and Toro, the hieroglyphs, and then the exact same names and descriptive titles in the Akan language. And those same names and titles of these same deities are carried into North America by our people. And our people didn't even know this is what we were doing. So when you look here, we have the Akan statuary up here and the names of these deities that govern this. So Sunday, of course, is the day of the sun. Monday is the day of the moon. Tuesday is the day of the planet Benna and Abena, which is whites and offspring called Mars. We call Benna and Abena. So the day of the sun is Awusi and Esi, which is ancient Kemet, is Alsar and Aset, when they operate in harmony with the Rod and Rad, operate through the sun in their solar aspect. When their spirits possess the sun and use the sun to project their energy, they're called Awusi and Esi. When they operate through the moon, when these spirits possess the moon, just like a spirit can possess you, the spirit possesses the moon and uses the moon to transmit their spiritual energy. Alsar and Aset are called Ajo and Ajua. So on Sunday, if someone is born on Sunday, a male is born on Sunday, he's born under the governance of the male divinity Awusi. If it's a female born on Sunday, she's born under the governance of the female divinity Esi. So that's our Sar and our Set. And then we take on the names Kwasi, which means a servant, Kwa of the divinity Asi or Awusi, Kwasi or Kwesi, like my soul name is Kwesi. A woman would be Akoswia or Akosua, or sometimes Esi, and there are different variations. Someone born on Monday, Kwajo or Kojo for males, Ajua for females. Born on Tuesday, which is Benada, Kwabena for males, Abena for females. So we have day names associated with each one. So you see the Akan sculptures representing these different male and female divinities. the solar, lunar, planetary body that governs Sunday for the sun, Monday for the moon, Mars, Bina, Abina for Tuesday, planet Mercury, which we call Aku and Akua for Wednesday, the planet Yao, Ya and Aba, which is Jupiter, Uranus and Saturn for Thursday, Friday, the planet Venus, which we call Afi, and then Saturday, the planet Amini, which we call Amen Men, the divinity Amen Men, and so forth. So those solar, lunar, planetary bodies govern the 7-day week. There are deities that animate those solar, lunar, and planetary bodies. When we're born on that day, that means that divinity, we were assigned to that divinity spiritually. Pre-incarnation, they sent us in the womb and made sure we came out on their day. Even if there are birth complications and cesarean sections and so forth, it's not going to be complete until it's the proper day, and then we will be born, come out of the womb on that day. And the people will say, oh, he came out on Awusida Sunday. That means he's governed by the divinity Awusi. Oh, she was born on Friday or Fida. That means she was assigned to the female divinity Afi. In Akan, she's Afi. In Yoruba, she's called Oshun. In ancient Kemet, she's called Het Heru. Same divinity, different names. So a woman would be called Afua or Afia. They're born on Fida and so forth, and carries that energy into the world. Now, so we have this whole chart. We also show the images in ancient Kemet of these same divinities, so you can see a comparison and see that they're the same forces in nature, how they're shown in the Akan tradition, shown in ancient Khanit and Kemet, but also the 11 major body systems that they govern. Awusi governs the endocrine system, Ajwa, Aset governs the reproductive system, the uterus and birth canal and so forth. You have Bina and Abina governing the lymphatic system and immune system, and each one of the 11 major systems are governed by these deities. So when we study the forces in nature, we're also studying biology. We're also studying astronomy, we're studying geology, we're studying math, we're studying science, we're also studying spirituality. It's all encompassing. So for example, if someone had an immune system disorder, since Bena, the male divinity Bena, governs the immune system, then there's something also going on with the energy complex, that fiery energy force of Bena. So when we give a ritual offering or engage in ritual practice to realign ourselves with that force in nature, Bena, who governs the immune system, then that also brings healing to our physical immune system, since he's the spiritual immune system. Same with the lymphatic system, the female divinity Abina. If we're out of alignment with her spiritually, then that's going to affect us physically. So let me show you a direct connection to that in North America with regard to the way we name ourselves. Now, one of the books that I published, one of the 31 books, is this Akradim Bosom series, and this is volume 2 of that series. And we were talking about the male divinity. You see, on the left, you see the Akan version of the divinity Awusi or Alsar. And then on the right, the ancient Kemeti version of Alsar. On the left, you have Aset, Essi. She's nursing the child and so forth, or about to nurse the child. Then on the right, you have the ancient Khaniti or Nubian version of Aset, the great mother, misnomered Isis by the whites in our spring, corrupted into that title, but these are the original forms and so forth, governing the sun and moon and so forth. But one of the things we point out in the introduction, we're talking about our ancient culture, how it goes back tens of thousands of years, and how we migrated from ancient Khanit and Nubia eventually to the western part of the continent. And we're showing some of the archaeology and things like that. And then we talk about the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week, as we just mentioned, and the names associated with them. And some of these names you'll be familiar with, you've heard. We also, for example, show the relationship between, on the left side, you see Kom, to dance wildly in a state of possession, spirit possession, and so forth. That's in the Akan language. You see Kema, but it's really pronounced Koma, to grasp, to seize, to possess, in the Medut and Totoro, the hieroglyphs of Kamit. We're compiling a dictionary, a comparative dictionary of the Akan language and the language of ancient Khanit and Kamit. We've already published a document showing that it's the same language, the same words, same names, same deities, same concepts, thousands of years separate, but the same people. So, but if you look at the different names, for example, if you've heard of, in fact, before we do that, let me switch. This is our Akradin Boson page where we detail all of that information we were just talking about. But here we have a list of the days of the week and the names of people born on those certain days. So we talked about born on a Sunday, Awusi or Essi, Kwesi for males, or Kwasi, Akoswia or Essi for females, Ajwa or Kwajo or Kojo, born on Mondays and so forth, Joda, Benada, Abinada, Kwabena for males, Abina for females, also Kobina or Kobi, Kweku or Aku for males for Wednesday, Ukuda, Akua or Ekua or Akuya or Akia for women. Thursday or Yauda, Yauda is Ya or Yawa or Ayaba or Abba or Baba and so forth for women. Yao or Kwao for males. For Friday or Fida, Afua or Efu or Afia for women. Kofi or Kwafi or Fi for males. And then you have Ama for women on Amaminida or Minida. Saturday you have Ama. And then for men, you have Kwame. So if you've ever heard somebody, named Kwame or Kojo or Kofi or Afia and so forth, or, Ajwa and so forth, these are names, soul names from Akan people. When we look in the first film, we show, for example, newspaper clippings from the Carolina Gazette and so forth, talking about the slaves in the 1700s. They were taken. This slave is being sold. He's, 17 years old. His name is Kofi. Another slave's name is Kojo. Another slave's name, her name is Afi or Efi. So what they were showing is these are specifically Akan names. We were able to identify, these were Akan people who were enslaved. These are the soul names of the Kradin of Akan people. And we maintain those. So, and one of the proofs of that is when you look at the praise names or quote unquote mrane or nicknames or variations of those names, you'll find that we've maintained them in North America. So we said here mrane or praise name. Someone who's Kwajo or Jojo, born on a Monday, is simply called Jojo. So if you know somebody named Jojo, if a woman who's actually ethnically Akan and instinctively she may not know that she's Akan, she's born and raised in North America, she doesn't know what ethnic group she comes from, but when she has a child, and the child is born on Monday, which is Joda, after the divinity Ajo, that's a male child, and she says, I need to give this child a name, the divinity will inform her, you need to name this child Jojo, Joe or Jojo. And she said, okay, the baby's name is going to be Jojo. And then it turns out, when she finds out later, when she does research years later, he was born on Monday under the governance of the divinity Ajo, and his praise name is Jojo. And every time that name is spoken, those sound vibrations stimulates the spirit of that child to align with that divinity and brings out his spiritual potencies and so forth. The same is true of like a Tuesday, Kwabena, named after the deity Benna. The praise name is Ben or Benny. You also see that Kobi, short for Kobina, Kobina, Kobe. So if you know somebody named Kobe, just like, for example, Kobe Bryant or somebody named Kobe, if someone is Akan and they were attuning to their ancestresses and ancestors, needed to name this child, and he was born on a Tuesday under the guidance of the divinity Benna, and he's normally called a Kobina or Kobina and so forth, and Kobe is short for Kobina. And she says, oh, this child's name is going to be Kobe. She's calling him by the Kradin or soul name, the name that the deity assigned to this person carries, and this person carries that energy into the world. So if we look at a list of the praise names, Yosi for Akwesi, Cc is also a male born on Sunday. That's a praise name for Akwesi, Cc or Yosi. For Afia or Afua, Fifi. So if you know somebody named Fifi or Fi, that is a title of a woman born on, Friday under the female divinity Afia, the goddess of love and creativity and music and art and so forth. On Saturday, Amma is the name of the divinity, short for Amenewa. Amma is a title, but sometimes that name is pronounced instead of Amma, it's Emma. So if you know somebody named Emma, that's a praise name for the divinity that governs Saturday for a female. So if someone gives birth to a female child on Saturday, Miminida or Amada and so forth, we would normally name that child Amma. She has that Kradin or soul name automatically. We may say Emma, just like on Friday it's Fifi or Afia or Efia, but another pronunciation of that is Efia or Efi. So if you know somebody named Efi, that's a praise name of the divinity Afi, who governs the planet Afi or Venus. Again, that's Heteru in ancient Kemet, Oshun in Yoruba, Afia or Afu or Efi in Akan. So girls named Fi or Fifi or Efi and so forth. That's a Friday born. We're carrying the name of the divinity. We're maintaining Akan Ancestral Religion. A female born on Sunday, she's a Koswia. Also, look at one of the names that just so happens recently to be, in the news, a variation of that. Essie. So Akoswia is a woman born on Sunday. Also Akosua. Also in the Fanti dialect, Essie. So Essie, we often associate that with an older woman in the, in culture here in North America. But Essie is the name of a woman or female born on Sunday, named after the divinity Essie or Essid or Aset. But Akoswia, a praise name of Akoswia is also Akosi and also Akasi or Akasi, and in North America is pronounced Cassie. So Cassie comes from Akasi or Akasi, Akasia, Akoswia. That is a nickname or Mrane or praise name for a woman born on Sunday, the solar expression of Aset, and carries that energy into the world. Coco is another name short for someone born on Sunday. Josie, as we said, for Sunday. Fifi for Friday. Ben or Benny. Abby, short for Abina, Abina and so forth. Kobe, as we said. Phoebe becomes Phoebe. Jojo becomes Joe for Quadro and Ajoa. Emma, as we said, for Ama. Coco for Kukua, Akua. Another short version of a praise name for Tuesday born is Ebo and Bo or Bobo and so forth. The divinity Amen Men is called Men in ancient Kemet. That's pronounced man in North America, and Manny or man and so forth. That comes from Amen Men, a praise name of Kwame. Then you have Jabo, Jawo, Yao, Babi, short for Abba or Baba and so forth. So we have these praise names or different dialectical variants of soul names that are common throughout North America. That's because our Khan people continued our naming practices. The child is born into the world. We listen to our Nsamanfo, our ancestresses and ancestors, and give the proper name to the child. Every time that name is spoken, you are actually invoking the divinity that governs your spiritual head and of realigning your spirit with your divine function in creation. So we're engaged in ritual practice very often unconscious, not even not even realizing aspect of the tradition, and we addressed that in the first film. And this is one of our books, Hoodoo People. So when you contribute to our crowdfund effort and so forth to help us get this film out by this coming October, and I'll put the link in the chat room right now. One of the things that we have, okay, and it's also in the description for the video. One of the things that we have, again, I published 31 books. So when you contribute, make a contribution to our crowdfund, and we appreciate that, you can download all of our 31 books for free. We've also curated and taught 42 online courses, and they are archived, so you can access those. And for those who give a contribution of $50 or more, we've had, and you'll see it right here on the YouTube channel. You'll see, go back like last week, and you'll see that we were putting forward we have a 9-part series on the Hoodoo tradition, 9 online courses. So some of them were 6-week courses, some of them were 4-week courses and so forth, but there are 9 of them, Hoodoo parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, dealing with various aspects of the tradition. And we had a special where, if you can get all 9 courses for $50. And you'll see that all 9 courses in a bundle for $50, and you can access those, 9 online courses, indefinitely and so forth. The books associated with the courses are free downloads, so you have access to those as well. We have this Hoodoo book, and we have 3 Hudoo Mind, Hudoo Nation festival journals, which you can read as well as other books also. But if you make a contribution of $50 or more, we will give you access to those 9 Hoodoo courses, so you'll have access to those. So instead of just purchasing them like normal on the website, you make a contribution, we'll send you the links and passwords to all of those 9 online courses, and you can access them perpetually. So that's just our thanks to those who contribute, to the film project. But so this book called Hoodoo People is a seminal text because it is in this text that we give the proper definition and show that Hoodoo not only comes from ancient Khanit and Kamit, Nubia and Egypt and so forth, the same terms written in the hieroglyphs, Medutu, but also we show the Akan language entries. So for example, the term for medicine is Edua, singular, or Edu for the roots of the trees from which the medicine comes from. So you have Undu, singular, you have Eduru or Edu, which means medicine. Undu, plural, means medicine. And Undu, plural, meaning medicine. Where does the Undu come from? And we show in this portion here that the Undu, and the plural is Dua, Undua, the medicine, Undu, comes from the Undua. That is the trees, the roots, the trees, the plant life. So there's a direct linguistic connection. The Undu, the medicine, the Hoodoo, comes from the Undua, the roots, the trees, the plant life. So there's a direct connection ritually, but also linguistically. Now, and then we show the connections to ancient Kemet as well. We show here the Odu Yefo and the Odu Sinfo. Odu Yefo means the root worker. Odu Sinfo means the root doctor in the Akan language. The Odun Sinfo is the Hoodoo Sinfo, the Hoodoo or root doctor. The Odu Yefo in North America becomes the Hoodoo Yefo, which means the root worker. So Odu Yefo, Udu Sinfo, and we also have Odu Tofo, Odu Mafo. These are all ritual titles in the Akan language for the Udu Yefo, Udu Sinfo, Udu Mafo, Udu Tofo, 4 ritual practitioners. In North America, that's the Hoodoo Sinfo, Hoodoo Yefo, Hoodoo Tofo, Hoodoo Mafo, the root worker, the root doctor, the one who uses medicine, herbs, and so forth to poison the enemy, to kill the slave master and so forth, so-called slave master. The Hoodoo Mafo, the diviner and so forth. So those are ritual practitioners who maintain the term Undu in their ritual practice in North America, just as we had it in Akan. But when we talk about the ritual practice, which this new film is going to get into, if we scroll down, we'll see where that comes from. In Akan, of course, the term hoodoo is also used as a verb. You're going to put hoodoo on someone. You're going to give the hoodoo or make the hoodoo for them, make the medicine for them. So it's also dealing with ritual offering, ritual preparation, and so forth. When you look in the language of ancient Kamit and you see this little hand with the open palm, this is pronounced udu, udu, a table or altar for offerings. Udu, the offerings of meat and drink which are set on the altar of the divinity. So in ancient Khanit and Kamit, ancient Nubia in Egypt, the ritual offerings that are given to the forces in nature, the deities, are called the undu. We're giving them the undu. And we continue to say that in Ghana and Ivory Coast, the undu, the medicine from the roots trees, the plant life, the ritually prepared medicine infused with the energy of the Abosom, the deities and the ancestral spirits. And in North America, we say we're going to give the hoodoo, or we're making the hoodoo and so forth. We're using the same terms that we've been using for tens of thousands of years, unbroken, from ancient Khanit and Kamit, Nubia in Egypt, to West Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Ghana and Ivory Coast, into North America. And then we also mentioned we mentioned a specific text right here. And we translate the text to show exactly in context what they're talking about. So the translation, the sanctuary of the deity, the Mtoro, he detests too much speaking. So you don't want to be talking, in the sanctuary of the divinity. Make prayers and invocations from your heart. Loving, being, invocations, it's all concealed. And then it says, your work, he will hear your work, which is said, will accept your offerings. So it says, the deity, the Abosom, detests too much idle speaking in his shrine. Make your prayers and invocations with a heart which is loving, lawful, whose invocations are internal and not boastful. The Abosom, the deity, will attend to the work you are doing ritually, hear that which you have inquired about, and accept your offerings. But when you look at, it says, so from a heart loving, meaning a loving heart, being invocations, it's all concealed, meaning the invocations of the ritual prayers that you put forward are concealed or they're internalized. And then it says, the Abosom will attend to the work you are doing ritually, hear that which you have inquired about, and accept your offerings. And when it says, will accept offerings the Udunu, this is pronounced Udunu or Udun, they will accept your Undun, Undunu or Undun. In one dialect, the plural is Undunu, another dialect is Undun. So the deity will accept your Undu or Undun at the offerings. The deity will accept your hoodoo when you engage in ritual prayer or invocation in a proper, harmonious, divinely lawful fashion. Then your ritual offerings or your Undun will be accepted. So this notion of ritual that's proven in the text of ancient Kemet and called Undun or hoodoo in the text of ancient Kemet was carried, of course, in our blood circles to the western part of the continent, Ghana and Ivory Coast, and then into North America. And we still say we're going to give the hoodoo or make the hoodoo for the divinity or the ancestral spirit so we can heal or protect or annihilate our enemy and so forth. We're doing the same things. So that's the trustorical and cosmological context for that. Now, let me remove that. If you have any questions, of course, you can post any questions in the chat room. Just want to show you a couple of other things. And we appreciate those who have already made a contribution to our film. But once again, we want to get this film completed for October, this coming October, for our Hudoo Hudoo Nation Festival. Now, one of the things that we did in our first 3 festivals and this is what I'm pulling up right here. We published a journal for the first year, the second year, and the third year. When people came out to the festival, we gave the journals out for free. They have articles on the Hoodoo tradition, different aspects of the Hoodoo tradition, and so forth. These journals are free downloads from the website. And of course, they also are included in the Hoodoo online courses. So when you're studying, sometimes we are referencing articles in these journals for you to study when you're studying in the courses. But so we had a number of different articles in these journals. I just want to show in this one. So we would have a number of different presenters, vendors. We're going to be sharing the plans for the upcoming Hoodoo Mind Festival. It will be here in Washington, D.C. if you want to attend. We had an article on the Hoodoo Wars, the solar eclipse, Okunfo Yao, Nat Turner, Alsar, and Heru, and we were talking about the cosmology of the great revolt of Okunfo Yao, Nat Turner, who was Akan, and he knew his Akan ancestry and so forth. He's governed by the divinity Yao. He was born on Yao Da Thursday. He's governed by the deity Yao in the Akan tradition, which is the same as the Hoodoo tradition. And that divinity is Heru in ancient Kamit, Shango in the Yoruba tradition, Hevioso in Vodun and so forth. It's called Yao in Akan. So, and every male born on Thursday carries the energy of that divinity. So we did an entire article talking about the cosmology behind. That's one of the Hoodoo Wars. Same thing with Denmark Visi, Okunfo Kwabena. We talk about that in the article as well. When we talk about the solar eclipse, how he utilized the solar eclipse in the same fashion as we did in ancient Khanit and Kamit. So we looked at the solar eclipse, and when you look at the eye of Heru, that sacred symbolism, and the cosmology in ancient Kemet of the eye being gouged out, the left eye being gouged out of Heru by the divinity Set, and then being restored by the divinity of divine wisdom. So the eye is gouged out and it goes blind and so forth, but then it's restored and then it becomes illuminated once again. They talk about the left eye of Ra as the moon and the right eye is the sun and so forth. So just as we talked about in ancient Kemet, just as we talked about in Akan culture in the Hoodoo tradition, Okunfo Yao, Nat Turner, saw the solar eclipse and the quote-unquote blackening of the eye and realized that was the time to make his move to wage war against the whites and their offspring, and led that great insurrection against the enslavers and massacred a number of them and led people to freedom. So we talk about that cosmology in that particular article, another one of the books that you can download for free. Let me show one other. I think I'm going to show you the Akuaba one. Okay. Another one of the important ritual practices that we have engaged in. So you'll find that there's this notion of the hoodoo doll baby in the hoodoo tradition. So you have the voodoo doll in the voodoo tradition, but you have the hoodoo doll baby in the Akan tradition. So the voodoo tradition is the Ewe people from Togo and Benin in the western part of the continent. And when Ewe people from the Ewe ethnic group were forced into North America, they continued their Ewe religion under the Ewe word voodoo or vodun. Akan people, as we said, when we were forced over here, we continued our Akan Ancestral Religion as Hoodoo. When Yoruba people were forced into North America, they continued the Yoruba tradition under the Yoruba word Juju. So the Juju man and Juju woman in North America is the Yoruba man, the Yoruba woman in North America. The Voodoo man and Voodoo woman in North America is the Ewe man or Ewe woman from the Ewe ethnic group in North America. The Hoodoo man and Hoodoo woman in North America is the Akan man and Akan woman in North America. So you have a voodoo doll, but in Akan we say a hoodoo doll baby. And the reason why we say doll baby, because that title is Akuaba. Akua references the doll itself, the ritual talisman, and Oba means child, offspring. So Akuaba is the ba, the offspring, the baby, the ba, doll, Akua. So we have Akuaba in North America is doll baby. So we show the continuity of that. So you see the Akan Akuaba doll that looks like the Ankh from ancient Kemet. We have a few versions of that. Then we have two in the middle right here. One of them was found in Virginia in the 1700s. And then this one is from Georgia, Jekyll Island on Georgia, one of the Sea Islands and so forth. So we talk about that. This one is a hoodoo doll baby made by a hoodoo practitioner in contemporary times a few years ago. So we show the cultural continuity of that. This particular doll baby is the one that was found in Virginia in the 1700s. It's in the traditional Akan style. And it was being auctioned at an auction sale as an African-American slave doll. And so we found that our Nsamanfo directed us to find an Akuaba doll in North America. We found that it was being auctioned off. It was like $500 or whatever. And we were able to acquire it through the assistance of one of our Nananom, our eldresses in the community. And we were able to retrieve that doll that's 300 years old, carved by one of our ancestresses 300 years ago in Virginia. And we have this ancient Akuaba hoodoo doll baby in our possession now at our ancestral shrine. We showed this in the first film, but then we're going to get into the ritual associated with impregnating these dolls and ritual statuary with the energy of the Abosom, the divinity, of the Nananom and Nsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors, for divinatory purposes, for ritual communication and so forth. But that's what I wanted to share with you all tonight. So we're partially complete with certain aspects of the film, the new film, part 2. So this is the crowdfund page. We put the update in it just earlier today, the new update to see how far along we are. We've done some of the work on the new film. We want to have it complete and release it in October at our Hudoo Nation festival. So that is our aim, but we do need the support of the community. So if you can make a contribution, this will assist us in, making the film. If you look back, and we just want to show you on our YouTube page, this is the first film. The first film that we released back in 2019, the Amarukafo Adebisa film. And we're talking about different forms of divination that were preserved in North America by our people. So 5 of us in the film: Mama Mawusi Ashakir, who was out of Cincinnati, Ohio; Rakit Kajara Nia Yad Nebehet, who came out of Richmond, but is now based in Georgia; Seshat Wabet Sachat Tut Ankh Wajet, who was based in Florida. Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau, who's based in New Orleans and so forth. And then myself. So each one of us presented. We traveled to Richmond, we traveled to Georgia, we traveled to Florida, we traveled to, so that was Raki Kajara. This is Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau. She's talking about the voodoo tradition. So we went to New Orleans for that. We were in Georgia to connect with Raki Kajara near Yad Nevet Head. And some of you are familiar with her. She founded the Raseki Kemetic Reiki healing practice and so forth, and teaches that. She's published a number of books and so forth. So we were in Georgia to film her segment. We were in New Orleans to connect with Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau, and she's talking about, so Kajara was talking about the Ngangang tradition. So Ngangang or Ngangang is the term in the Fang language, the Fang people, F-A-N-G, the Fang people of Gabon and Cameroon. When they were forced into North America, they continued their ancestral religious practice under the term Ngangang or Ngangang. So when you hear people say gang, like a street gang and so forth, the actual term is Gang, which is a term of a ritual practitioner in the Fang language. So people don't even know when they say gang, they're literally saying gang, and they're invoking the name of a ritual priest or priestess in the Fang tradition. We never stopped utilizing that terminology. Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau in New Orleans, she was talking about the divinatory practice preserved in her blood circles and so forth. Then we were in Florida with Wabet Sachat Tut Ankh Wajet. She published the book, the series Wachet Yoga, showing that yoga, of course, comes from our ancestral culture. Before India existed, we were already engaged in that practice and so forth. And she talks about a divinatory practice, part of the Ovambo people, which is our ancestry, which became Wanga in North America. So the Wanga man or Wanga woman who throws the Wanga and so forth, part of the Gullah and Geechee tradition and constellation. The Ovambo people were part of that, and they used the term Wanga, and we still use the term Wanga today. And she showed a divinatory practice that was preserved in her blood circle in North America, unbroken. And then, of course, we have Mama Mawusi Ashakir, dealing with the Juju tradition, which is the Yoruba tradition in North America called Juju, and she was talking about a divinatory practice. She's based in Cincinnati, so we were in Cincinnati with that part of the film and so forth. So that film, we actually won an award for Best Original Documentary at the Kwanzaa Film Festival in New York for this film, and we also were asked to come out, and we had our film screened in California at the Pembroke Taparelli Arts and Film Festival when the film first came out, and we sat on a panel to speak about ancestral religion and race and social justice and so forth. So that film, we did a crowdfunding effort for. The community supported us, and we were able to go to these different places and film these different things, and we won an award and so forth. And you have access to that film. That one came out actually this year. Well, this October will make 7 years when that film came out. Our Hoodoo film, the first in the Hoodoo Trilogy, came out 2 years ago in October. So now we, of course, once again, we want to release the new film, the new Hoodoo film, as we said, in this October. So we're just showing that to say that we just wanted to show this, of course, is the notion of the rabbit's foot and the rabbit's foot talisman, which is part of our Akan tradition. Adanko and Adankoa are the male and female rabbit divinities. Their sacred animal totem is the rabbit and so forth. You'll see the goddess Unut, who has the rabbit or hare as her totem from ancient Kemet. We carried that into the Akan tradition, the sacred animal totem for the hare, the rabbit, and then the rabbit's foot in ancient Kemet. or in Hoodoo, but derived from ancient Kemet. But once again, we're asking the community to come out once again and support through the crowdfunding effort. We're going to complete this film. And if you like the first 2 films that we put forward, and you can access both of them for free right here on this channel in the documentary film section, Amarukafo Adibisa, African American Ancestral Divination, and Hoodoo, Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. If you like those films, if they have empowered you, and everybody who's seen the film, they've been transformed by the films and so forth, talked about how they've empowered them, transformed their consciousness, started pushing them into learning about their ancestral traditions, holistic health, ritual practice, realignment spiritually, even with this whole notion of people talking about mental health and so forth. The original therapists are the priests and priestesses. Even the term therapy comes from the term in ancient Kemet, Chedep for male, Chedepit for female. These are 2 titles of a certain class of priest or priestess. The Chedep and the Chedepit, masculine and feminine, was corrupted into Chedepi or therapy and therapist and therapist and so forth. But the priests and priestesses attend to the spirit of the individual, the so-called psyche of the individual. A psychiatrist is providing medicine and giving, counseling and therapy and so forth based on a lack of understanding of the spiritual anatomy of our people, and therefore they're drugging our people and giving us drugs that are deleterious to our physiological makeup, and also giving us, ideas that either just calm us down and keep us in a drone-like, measure of consciousness, or totally taking away from our true ancestral cultural consciousness and trying to embrace white values and culture and so forth. We're not being served well by the mental health field unless you have some Black people who get inside the field, infiltrated, who are rooted in ancestral culture, become therapists, and then use their ancestral religious practices in their mode of therapy. When we worked in the field of mental health for over a decade, we would connect with our clients and so forth, but we would introduce ancestral religious principles and so forth to get them on the right track. So, but people who are studying our culture and get back involved in the culture because they saw the films, they start realigning themselves with a proper sense of emotional balance, mental balance, spiritual balance, correct any mental health issues, physiological health issues, cultural, spiritual, social, communal, and so forth. So it's all about nation building at the end of the day. This is what the education is for. And we ask that you also share the information as well. All we need is 100 people. With 100 people, like in the first crowdfund effort that we had for the very first film, with all the sisters and myself, we had like 160 people who contributed, and that's all we needed. 160 people was enough for us to raise the necessary funds to travel across the country and, film and the cameras and so forth and do everything we needed to do. Same thing here. We've done some of the work already, so we just have to finish up between August and September, like mid-September, we'll finish the rest of the filming, and then mid-September into the end of September and into the early part of October, we will finish that post-production. And anybody, if you know anything about the film industry and so forth, it's in post. That takes a very long time. The editing takes a very long time. It takes, a very long time. So if we can get that started near mid-September and so forth, by the time we get into October, we can complete that process. And that's what we're working towards. So we've done some of the work, but we need the assistance of you, the community, to assist in the, completion of that. So if you can make a contribution, once again, anybody who makes any contribution is welcome. It doesn't matter how much it is. Anyone who makes a $50 contribution or more, we will send you access to those 9 courses, Hoodoo courses. That includes, of course, the free book downloads and so forth. But just like you see on our channel, as we said earlier, our 9-course bundle, Hoodoo parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, We have that as a special for $50, but if you make a $50 contribution or more, we will, of course, send you those 9 Hoodoo courses as a thank you for assisting us in completing this film. So these are the kinds of films we need, as opposed to a lot of the nonsense that's been put out over the years. Now, there has been a little bit of a shift. They released the film Sinners recently, and it's got a lot of publicity. There were a few elements of Hoodoo in the film. It wasn't full. I thought it was going to be totally different. There were a few references to Hoodoo, and you have to really understand the tradition to know what the references are. So it was kind of hidden. There are certain things they were, touching upon, but weren't fully understanding and so forth. And even the actors were talking about how they had to study certain things. So we may even do a breakdown of that film just to show what the Hoodoo elements are, what things were accurate, what things were kind of not 100% accurate, but they were trying their best to convey certain things. We may do a breakdown of that, but at least people are starting to pay attention and they are excited about learning something about our culture. The fact that the movie Sinners did so well and it broke records and so forth, that's showing that a shift is taking place. This is our 11th year, even with regard to our culture. 11 years is a sacred cycle. There's a set of 11 deities. The Akradin Bosom is a set of 11 forces in nature, which is a sacred number. We also have the halfway point of a solar cycle, the sunspot cycle, and that halfway point, that 11-year point, is sacred. We're in the 11th year of our Hoodoo Mind Festival. So all of that is coming together where the consciousness of the people is opening up. Maybe 6 or 7 years ago, if someone was doing a film talking about Hoodoo or ancestral religion of Black people in North America, people would say, oh, that's demonic, we can't watch that, but now it's breaking records. So people are more open. And that's partially because of the work that we have done, and other people who are practicing authentic expressions of ancestral religion have been pushing for the past decade and so forth. It's beginning to get into the quote unquote mainstream, and it's influencing people and they're interested in learning. So this second Hoodoo film dealing with ritual will simply build upon that and empower our people, youth as well as adults. So we appreciate those who have already contributed. You can go to the link now. We updated the link this afternoon. So it's the fundraiser.com/Hoodoo film on the site. We put it in the description box. So Yedase, we thank you for supporting our work and contributing to the film. And Yebeshabio, we will meet again. That's it.